Hi everyone, Bandana here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel, and yes, fantastic, massive news for Command & Conquer fans. Over the last year, and probably a little bit longer, Electronic Arts have been working with Luke Freenan, a Command & Conquer modding veteran of 20 plus years, also known as CC Hyper, on rebuilding the source code for a bunch of Command & Conquer games. Now, some of you will already know what that means, but those who don't, stay a little bit longer in the video and I will explain that. But there is other news to mention first. Not only are we getting those source codes, we're also getting updates to various games in the Command & Conquer series on Steam to integrate the Steam Workshop. This will allow people to upload their custom maps and for other people to download and play them. And yet there is still more. They're also releasing a CNC modding support pack which contains various files and data for the Sage Engine games. This would be Command & Conquer Generals, Red Alert 3 and Command & Conquer 3. Okay, fine, but what does all of this mean? Well, for those who aren't aware, source code is basically the human readable instructions that programmers write to create software. Most of the time when you're modding a video game, you don't have access to any of this, which limits what you can do with modding. Some games release modding tools, but again, there will still be a limit because they aren't releasing the original source code. Now, what usually happens with many games is that fans then attempt to sort of reverse engineer an alternative source code so they can make adjustments to the original game. But obviously, this again has limitations. Sometimes working out okay and sometimes not working out at all. But what does having the source code actually allow then? Well, it will allow an expansion of the games. So with the source code, modders can add new content, mechanics, levels, characters, new campaigns, everything that they could make in the original game when it was released, modders can now make as well. But it's not just about new content in that sense. It also means that the modders and the community can now properly patch the game, fixing bugs that were unfixable before, and even reworking bits of the engine in the sense of upgrading it to look better, and also do things like optimize for new operating systems, new resolutions, or new control schemes. And some of this has been done retrospectively in some of these games with that whole reworking their own source code, but it's very, very difficult and obviously takes a very long time. Having the source code allows them to do this in a much more efficient fashion. The other thing about having the source code rebuilt is that, for example, Electronic Arts could now remaster these games without needing to rebuild everything from scratch. So which games exactly are included in this release? Well, Command & Conquer Tiberian Dawn, as in the original Command & Conquer, Command & Conquer Red Alert, Command & Conquer Renegade, and Command & Conquer General/Zero Hour. Now, there's two omissions there, which you will notice, which is Tiberian Sun and Red Alert 2. Unfortunately, from what I've read, the source codes for both of these games are lost, like properly lost. So I guess all we can hope for there is that they manage to find scraps of it and piece it back together, but certainly they haven't mentioned anything about it in their press release. So that one's going to be a wait and see and just keep our fingers crossed. I mean, I'm still dreaming of a Red Alert 2 remaster, to be honest, but I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen. At least we do now know, however, that at least someone or a few people at Electronic Arts still care about Command & Conquer. I guess Jim Vasella, we're looking at you. Luke Freenan also made a little bit of a tease about the CNC Online team and what they will do in the future with multiplayer. I guess now they have access to the source code, it opens up a lot of different options for the multiplayer side of things, and also, you know, integrating all of that directly into the game easier rather than having it as separate launches as well. And in the short term, this probably won't be very exciting for the majority of players. However, in the long term, we could see some really amazing mods being brought back to life and have a new lease of life with lots of new content potentially being added if those modders want to come back. One thing that came to my mind straight away is Command & Conquer Generals and the massive difficulty that teams have had over the years of putting in campaigns to the game. Having access to the source code should, in quotation marks, make this much, much easier. That doesn't mean there isn't a lot of work involved, and I you know, take off my hat to all of these modders that have made such amazing mods, because they work so hard. And I'm not a programmer. I've dabbled in modding in various games over the years, but not to the extent that these guys do, and they have carried this community for so many years. They all deserve a pat on the back. So remember, when you go and download a mod, or, you know, you see these people posting updates to their mods so that, you know, there are massive fixes to these games in the next couple of years, remember to say thank you. They're doing this in their free time and making a huge difference for all of us. And I, for one, can't wait to try the stuff that they're going to make. However, I will leave this video there, as I don't want to ramble on. It was more of just a news update and an explainer for those of you who might not know exactly what having the source code can mean for the modders. And if you're wondering, by the way, the video that's been playing in the background, I have linked it down below. EA released this along with this update and news. It's basically some development footage from when they were building CNC Renegade and CNC Generals. So you'll see some things in there that never made it into the final games, and this was all archive footage they've managed to discover and, you know, digitize. A very interesting watch, if nothing else. Thank you all for joining me. Please remember to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon.